Alright, so this video comes as something I've kind of been wanting to talk about for a little bit, and that is the perfect cage. Okay, so I posted about this, I don't know, a couple weeks back on the other social media sites, asking that question, what people felt like the perfect cage was. Now, there's really no such thing as the perfect cage, perfect setup, other than the animals being out in the wild. So really what we're trying to do is the best captive conditions we can do for these animals when we have them in our care. And for me, that's always kind of a struggle, because I want to provide the best care that I can, but sometimes I feel like the care sheets that I read online, I think that they're too what am I thinking here? They don't allow for wiggle room. And you're probably thinking, well, why would they need to allow for wiggle room? Well, for instance, let me pull this over here. This is your typical all-screen chameleon cage. I've used these before, and to be honest, I have poor success with chameleons when I use this all-screen cage. But if you go to the care sheets, you go look it up online, and what do they all tell you? You need to put a chameleon in an all-screen cage because you need the airflow. You don't want the air to get stagnant in the cage. These are the reasons for it. But then you go and look how people are using these, and a lot of times, they have to really fill this cage in with decor because the animal's stressing out, because it's seeing too much stimulus outside its cage, and it's stressful, right? That's what they say. So you fill in the cage with a lot of stuff, and then you'll even see people go as far as putting stuff on the outside to help as a visual block. And then what's the next issue with this? People have trouble with the humidity. We put the sprayers and the humidifiers on there, but unless you humidify the entire room that they're in, you are not really going to create a microclimate with this thing being all open. So what do? The videos I see of people, they wrap it. They wrap plastic around it to keep the spray from the spray nozzles in. Also to help hold the humidity inside the cage longer, to create that microhabitat. So you gotta ask yourself, then, or at least I ask myself, then is an all-screen enclosure really the best way to keep a chameleon? That's my thoughts. I'm not saying that this is a horrible design. I think it depends on where you live in the country, and that's why I said these care sheets that I read, I don't think there's that wiggle room in there. If you're in Florida, southeastern states, this is probably perfect. Your humidity is already there, your temperature is already there. But what about a guy in Maine? What about a guy like myself in Ohio who has trouble with these? These northern states out west that are in the deserts like Arizona. Suddenly this is no longer the best cage, in my opinion, for chameleons. But if you put a chameleon in a glass aquarium, which I'm not saying you should, the internet will lose their mind. Now, if you're a long-time subscriber of my channel, you know that I've had chameleons, and I don't have them now. And it's because I cannot keep them alive and thriving when I use this. Now let me tell you a story. Some of you are going to get angry, and I'm just telling you my experience, and I'm not endorsing this as the way to raise a chameleon. But the big chameleon that I had, you go back maybe a year and a half, Pascal, that great big male chameleon I had, he was actually in a glass aquarium. I think it was a 75 glass aquarium. I put plants in there, and screen lit. I had the lights. I had, heat light on one side, full spectrum light across the top. I had a mister to spray in there, glass aquarium, and he, from all my accounts of observing him and keeping him, he seemed to be healthy. He was eating, doing great. But you never seen me post a video of him in that enclosure. Why? Because I knew it went against the grain of care sheets, and I knew if I shown YouTube, the internet, my chameleon in a glass aquarium, that people would lose their mind. So I never showed it. But I knew if I was ever going to show his enclosure, I was going to have to do it the care sheets way, right? So I purchased this thing and set it up just the same as his aquarium, the same plants, same lighting, same misting system. But I never blocked, never wrapped it or anything. Just a bunch of plants inside, and he died shortly after. I don't know what he died from. I did buy him as an adult, so I do not know how old he was. I do not know if age was a factor. But he did pass away after I placed him in this cage. I don't remember exactly how long. I think it was a couple months. So then I went to the One Tinley show. I believe it was a March show. I picked up those two babies. The one died a week after I got home with it. The second lived in this green enclosure for a good couple months. And then, if you remember, I bought that slightly bigger one from a pet store. I know, bad, right? So then I moved the little one out of here and into an aquarium, and then I put the medium-sized one in here. That thing only lasted a month in here. Now again, maybe it was a pet store chameleon and it was just doomed to fail, but it died in here. That little baby was doing really, really good in that glass aquarium. Again, same setup as Pascal, that larger male. Planted, lights, all the things, everything he needed was there. Except for it wasn't a screen enclosure, it was a glass enclosure. Did fine in there, got him up to a good size, transferred him over here, because again, I knew I could not show his setup on the internet because people would lose their mind. Moved him in here. A couple months later I came home from work and he was dead, hanging from his plants. That's why you don't see no more chameleons on my cage, because I hate seeing them die. That's the worst thing. But I can't keep them in this all screen cage. And because if this is the way they have to be kept, then I just don't keep them, because my personal belief is, me living in Ohio, this is not the right way, at least as far as everything that is involved in this reptile room. I can't. Another thing that's been, we'll just push this out of the way. So another thing I want to talk about is I get a lot of questions on the blue tongue skinks setup, and people were initially shocked that I didn't have a heat source. Well, I had the under tank heater, but I didn't have a secondary heat source. And I've got this question a lot. Well, why don't you have a secondary heat source? Well, I have an entire room full of reptiles, and like right now it's 80 degrees in here and it's like 55 outside. So I already have ambient temperature at 80 degrees. He's got a under tank heater at the one end of his tank, and they say those raise it approximately 10 degrees above ambient. So if I were to check his temperature, which it's over there, I would see that he has it in the right spot. So people ask me, well, do I need the secondary heat source? Well, I can't answer that because I don't know where you live and I don't know the whole picture. If I just had this one skink in my bedroom, in my living room, wherever, and he was like the only pet I had, where I didn't heat a whole room, and yeah, you might need a secondary heat source. What you have to do is you have to set your tank up. This is why you always set your cage up before you get your animals. You set the cage up and read your temperatures. If you cannot maintain the right temperature, then yes, you're going to have to add a secondary heat source. But you can't just simply ask me as a generalized question, well, do I need to? And again, it depends on where you live in the country, depends on your climate swings. You know, I'm in Ohio. You know, we get cold winters and we get hot summers. And you know, I have to constantly adjust things according to the season. So but he does have a secondary heat source. It does drop every now and again, especially at nighttime. And I just like to have that help warm that cage back up. So I do have one. And he does bask under it from time to time, not a whole lot. Enough that I leave it on, but once I start seeing that he's staying away from it more than he is underneath it, then I'll either turn it off or I don't remember if I can get a smaller heat emitter. I don't remember if that's a 50 watt. If it is, I'll just have to turn it off, or we'll just have to adjust it. But the point is, you always have to constantly check your temperatures, and especially when you're in Ohio. So my final thought is the Savannah monitor. And you know, I read the care sheets online that people have. I'm watching YouTube videos of people who have them, and alright, so a little technical difficulty. Okay, so back to the Savannah monitor. So I've been reading, you know, the care sheets online. I've been watching videos of people who have them. You know, everybody, you know, from people I don't really know to even people like Kevin McCurley up at Nerd. You know, he's got a nice collection of them that he breeds with that albino one. And you know, I want to set up the best enclosure I can for him, and I struggle with what exactly is the best enclosure. And this is going to go back to, this is why I talked about the chameleon cage ahead of time, because that's what I'm going back with this guy is, well, how much of that information is actually spot on? And you know, how do I know it's just not people repeating what somebody else said, what somebody else said, what somebody else said, as opposed to somebody who actually knows because they kept the animal, they tried this, they tried that, and from their own personal experiences, this is what they have developed as the best case scenario. I mean, I can go into the leopard gecko. You know, I post this guy, he's on loose substrate, and nobody likes that. I even had a kid, he was like, I don't know, it looked like he may have been 10. You know, telling me that I needed to research my care of my leopard gecko because I kept it on sand. And you know, I informed him that, you know, I've been keeping reptiles for almost 20 years, and I mean, if you don't even go back to when I was a kid, and you know, had the little nose back when I was 10 and 11. But the point is so many people read those care guides and they believe that that's the absolute. And you know, while they're a good starting point, you know, I'm sure people are going to watch this and going to gripe that this guy is on sand. But I have addressed those concerns with those people that, you know, I don't feed crickets all that often, so there is no loose insects running around that they're going to miss and ingest sand. I bowl feed. There is a bowl right there. There's, you know, so there's no substrate in the bowl, so I don't have to worry about that. So if it's eating out of the bowl, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but she is climbing on the log up there. So if she's eating out of the bowl, if they're eating out of the bowl, then where's the problem with impact? If they're not going to ingest it. But I had this kid who you know, obviously has not had enough personal experience on keeping leopard geckos. He only read online, and now he feels like he knows enough to start telling myself, who has kept reptiles longer than he's probably been alive. You know, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but you know, the ideal that, you know, without knowing much about the animal, and if you read that one care guide, yeah, this cage is completely wrong. but I paid, like I've said before, I pay attention to the animal, and I let them, you know, tell me what they need. And you know, if I seen them starting to eat the substrate or had a feeling that that I would do something different. But again, I believe I have taken care of, you know, the risk of ingesting substrate by putting in the dish. But nobody, very few people are okay with that. Why? Because it goes against the grain of the care guides they've read. So back to Savannah Monitor. This is where I struggle with trying to find the best way to set this guy up, because how much of it is real data and how much of it is just regurgitated care sheets, you know? Like, I mean, how many people out there who actually put together care sheets have actually did it free of any kind of influence from someone else's care sheet, and they've done it simply by observing their own animal and putting together the same, you know, a guide for it, you know? So that's what I struggle with this Savannah Monitor. And I guess one of the things I'm curious about, and that's kind of reasons why I want to talk about this, is, you know, because you guys have responded great from the last video. You know, you guys have put out some good information and gave me some things to really think about. So when it comes to Savannah Monitor, so the ideal is an adult cage for one of these guys is what, 8 foot long, 4 foot wide, and 4 foot tall, because you want 2 feet. You want a 2 foot depth of substrate. Now I have a question on that, because it seems like from, again, I've gathered my information from a variety of sources, and you know, cross check each other. And the reason you want deep substrate is for them to dig. Now, I've seen people talk where, you know, hey, my Savannah Monitor doesn't dig at all, and others say, yeah, mine digs all the time. And so I've been paying attention, and I want to get your guys' thought on this. But it seems like those monitors who dig more seem to be in smaller cages, and I'm wondering if the urge to dig more is because if they heat the one side of the cage, you know, to the 125 to 130 hotspot that they need, by the time that heat moves across the cage to the cool side, well, what's the temperature over there? You know, is it still 95 plus and the lights are on timers? So is the Savannah Monitor really digging to escape that super high heat like it would if it were in Africa? You know, because that's why they burrow, is to escape the heat, the extreme heat of the day. And, you know, if you have that 8 foot long cage and you've got your temperature at the one end at the 130 mark, and then by the time you get to the other side, the 8 foot, you know, 8 foot away, what's the temperature there? And it seems like that those monitors dig less. So I guess what I'm getting at is, what's the right balance in here? Obviously I'm going to build the biggest cage that I possibly can, and I do like the idea of a 8 foot long, 4 foot wide, but I probably still will go 4 foot tall. But I don't know if I'm gonna go with 2 feet of soil. I guess this is gonna be the leopard gecko way of doing it. What I will do, obviously I'm watching him now. He digs a lot now. You can kind of, I don't know if you can really see, but he's cleared out underneath the water dish. But he's little and he's afraid of everything. He'll be out, and if I walk into the room, he scatters. So I believe his digging now is more to just have part of his little nervousness, I suppose. But I'm going to, just like the leopard geckos, I'm going to let him dictate what he needs. I'm going to start with a thinner soil, you know, and by thin I don't mean like, you know, an inch of soil. I mean it'll still be a deep substrate that he can, you know, burrow in. I'll make a little man-made burrow, pack it full of soil, allow him to excavate it out, create his little pocket, and let him feel like as if he has dug his own burrow. You know, make sure it holds humidity, all that stuff. I'm gonna hit all that, make sure all that stuff is spot on. I guess I'm just most curious about if a deep substrate bed is truly what they need. And I'm just curious to see what you guys think. That's kind of why I'm just throwing this out there, because you know that's still a little ways ahead. I still have, you know, time to figure that out, because like I said, he's about the size of a leopard gecko, and she's out of sight, so you can't see him. You know, so he's about, you know, his body is about 6'7". He's probably about 8 inches long, his body, not including his tail. So, you know, I still got some time yet to finalize my thoughts. And again, like I said, I'm going to build the cage as big as I absolutely can. I will build it to allow for, you know, 2 feet of substrate. But I'm not so certain that he's actually going to use it. And if he does, I'll just add more dirt. It's as simple as that. So I'm just curious, you know, go ahead and tell me what you think down below. If you have a YouTube channel and your response is big, feel free to film yours. And, you know, tag me in it or whatever, call me out, let me know. And, you know, because I'm curious. I am a sponge when it comes to this monitor. I want to learn. I want to learn everything I can. Like I've been a snake guy for so long. I feel like I'm re-entering the hobby for the first time by getting such a big monitor lizard, or a lizard that will get big, because I have not had anything beyond a bearded dragon as far as size when it comes to lizards. So, you know, I feel like this guy is, you know, I'm excited for it, and I want to learn. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to consider different points of angles, different points of views, especially if you keep Savannah monitors. Your knowledge is what I really want to hear. I want that first-hand accounts. I've read plenty of care sheets, so and I'm not saying you're going to be wrong, but if that's what you're going to, you know, talk to me about is what you read on a care sheet, chances are I probably read it, but feel free to share the information anyways. Like I said, I am a sponge. So, this has been a lot longer video than what I anticipated. I thank you for sticking around for this long. I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. There's a lot of great, with my subscribers, I have a lot of knowledgeable people, and you know, I appreciate your comments. I do, especially when I ask for, you know, your advice on care, because despite the fact that I have been into this for nearly 20 years, I am not, my ego is nowhere to where I can't ask for help and say, hey, I don't really know the right answer. And when it comes to Savannah monitor, I don't 100% know the right answer, and that's the beauty of the reptile community for the most part, is we can share this knowledge through YouTube, through other social medias, and together we can put together, you know, the right stuff for our animals and help take care of them. And I am just blabbling on, so we're gonna end this video right here. So thank you for watching. Until next time, later.
Shut up and sit down.